Rise up, the Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. The crew is back, and now it's time to rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. Rise up, rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. The crew is back, and now it's time to rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. Rise up.
And welcome back to the D's on Fire podcast. We made a promise in the title of the last episode that there'd be no more live watch alongs, and we could not wait to start recording. So there's about 3 minutes, 31 seconds left on the clock in this Duquesne DePaul matchup that we'll talk about towards the end of the episode. And I feel pretty good about the Duke's chances in this one. No, knock on wood, obviously, but up 17, now 16, feeling pretty good.
Yeah, this would have been a really depressing episode had they lost this game. So they're fucking lucky.
I was in a very different mood before this game. I really struggled my rewatch of the New Mexico State game, and it's because it had the similar feel to the two games prior, really, where it's just like there's things that are not going the right direction here.
Yeah. Mainly on the defensive end. So,
I mean, offensively too. I was more critical of them offensively in the last few games, but we talked about the bad thing of turnovers, which they've clearly focused on and have corrected. I thought the New Mexico State game, the biggest issue was shot selection and just, man, we could not make a thing in that game. But let's get into it. So how are we feeling up into this point of the Duke season, assuming they do not collapse, which, I mean, the last few possessions since we started have not been great. So who knows?
yeah, I mean, this game felt pretty good, but like you said, New Mexico, Day specifically, those like last 3 games or so has not really played that well. But in this DePaul game, he looks like he's back to himself.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about it. The biggest difference I noticed with Day was he seemed to be forcing things and forcing his shots up and not really playing within the offense. The ball movement wasn't necessarily there when he was getting shots up. Coach Dan Burt in the post-game presser after New Mexico State said that he felt Day was taking the same shots that he took, and they just weren't going in, but he was making them before. I don't think that's accurate, but I mean, you're not gonna go too hard on your best player offensively, just because he hasn't shot the ball well in 2 games, I guess.
It was 3 games, I think.
Yeah.
Ball State was also not that great.
Ball State, we got lucky. Trey Clark, thank you. And
I was about to get really pissed because I was trying to I did like a breakdown of Day's, like his highs and his lows over the last 7 games. But I found it, so
all right.
Don't worry, listeners, don't fret. I have the stats.
He has his deep statistical breakdown that he wants to get into tonight.
For some reason, it's saved as a Chrome and not an Excel, even though I worked in Excel. It's fine. We're okay.
From a player, like a starting lineup standpoint, I feel okay. I still feel like Day is a great shooting guard for the A10. Point guard, I feel like Rozier as a starter while Brewer's out isn't going to hurt us, really. Like he doesn't make mistakes that are going to cost you. He just doesn't have the 3-point shot to really make himself an offensive threat on his own. Is how I'd put his style of play. So
I would agree. I mean, I was thinking about that during this game actually, because he didn't start this DePaul game, which I kind of assumed he would.
Yeah,
But
they put McGriff
he-
at the point.
and yeah, that's not. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I was just a little surprised, but yeah, he's kind of just he's got a really tight handle. That's number one. What you've want from a point guard. He's not going to score a lot, but he'll keep the offense moving, get it to the right guys, sort of thing. And Frost is smiling because I assume you saw the game went final.
Yeah, I just enjoyed that the coaches started the handshake line as the players still had to dribble the ball because, it's not the same thing as the NFL where you can just end the game because the time's going to run out with your possession. But the
At least there
coaches,
wasn't fouling. That's great.
yeah, the coaches have respect for each other and they're like, all right, let's just get this thing over with. Yeah, I mean, before this game, this podcast was going to be a really different note. So I am thrilled that we turned it around to the extent that we did. And honestly, defensively, for the most part, the past few games, we've been doing it defensively pretty well. And it's just been turnovers and not being able to make our own shots and shooting too quickly where we're giving up and the rebounds, which we've addressed previously. And that happened this game too, where like defensive rebounding is just not a focus of our team. It seems like we're always trying to go on offense before we actually get the ball. I don't know if that's actually the issue or if it's just I've also an issue that
I have a few theories, but we can get into it later. I have a few theories on what that could be, or
sure,
some at least contributing factors.
in past years I've noted, especially last year, which a lot of different players, but last year in particular, they were just trying to out jump to get the rebounds. Whereas, I mean, rebounding is so much about desire and positioning that being super athletic, you can take that out of the equation almost
That
with
works in
those.
high school. That doesn't work at Division I basketball.
Oh, no, no, no. No, no, it still does because Austin Rotroff is nowhere near as athletic as
No,
some of
no,
the
I mean
guys who.
athletic, just jumping higher than the
Oh, yeah.
others. It
Okay.
works in high school
Got it.
as
I thought you
opposed
were
to
saying that the
no,
fundamentals.
no,
I was
no.
like, Alec, Zach
I would
Randolph was a big in the NBA, made his living off of not being able to jump and still being a beast down there.
can't fit a
Dewan
piece of paper under when he jumps.
Dewan Blair played years without any ACLs in his legs and still was consistently a rebounding machine in the NBA with
No, yeah, I
limited
wasn't
minutes.
refuting your entire point. That would be foolish.
Um, yeah, so that I don't I don't know if that's really playing as big of a part because I mean they're focusing so much on that aspect on the offensive board. You'd think that they wouldn't be completely giving it up on the other end, but the numbers are so different that maybe it is just a focus thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
so updated numbers with that. Still first in offensive rebounding in the A10. We're eighth in the country in offensive rebounding. These are all per basketball.real MGM. Defensive rebounding, last in the A10 at 22.6 a game. 22.6 a game. That's 325th in the country. That's down since the last time I reviewed these
how many
stats.
teams are there?
About 360, let's call it 360.
Okay, all right.
So they're bottom third
Yeah, well,
by
definitely bottom
by
third.
by quite a considerable margin, almost bottom 10th.
Yeah. So the final numbers, according to the broadcast, 66-55 Duquesne. Duquesne only had 13 assists. DePaul only had 9. Rebounding, we dominated in this game against DePaul, 45-26. Both only having 10 turnovers, and the field goal percentage we shot just under 40%. They shot just over 30%. Um, so
And
there
we
it
didn't
is.
shoot that well from three in this game.
No,
28%.
we shot a little under 33, unless we made another one that when I wasn't paying attention. Day Day was the leading percentage and leading 3-point shooter today, going 3 for 8. We had two big guys miss their one attempt at a three, and then everybody else I think went 1 for 3 or 2 for 6. So not bad. Uh, yeah, I mean, we were definitely more selective, I'd say, on our shot selection this game. Um, Hopefully that continues moving forward. And even though the assist numbers weren't necessarily there, I felt like the ball movement was a lot better, and it wasn't as much isolation as it has been in those two losses.
I think the ball movement in the first half was better. The second half, there was I think some complacency, maybe a little bit, and didn't move as much. And then that's kind of when things started to tighten up from DePaul's perspective. But then, kind of back around that 7 minute mark, we kind of put it back together again and
Yeah, we
moved
we flicked
the ball and started scoring.
flipped the switch when we realized, all right, we gotta get this back into gear. All right, so now that the DePaul game's out of the way, let's go back in time to New Mexico State. This is going to be so much fun to go through these notes. Uh, Joe Reese getting the start at center made sense to me. I mean, Dixon had been struggling a little bit the last two games, I'd say.
He's
So
fouling too much.
yeah,
That's the main thing. He's been fouling too much. I think 4
yeah.
personal fouls in both games in his limited minutes.
And Joe Reese was the starter coming into the season. So, I mean, now that he's got his
He's
feet
played
under him,
well with this. So this loss wasn't on him. He was
no.
4 of 9 from the field, 4 of 4 from the line, 12 points. He showed a little bit of passing out of the post. Defensively, he can move his feet well. Offensively, like I said, he played well. So, and then in this DePaul game, he played well again. So, I don't mind him starting over Dixon. I mean, he has more size and more experience, and clearly a capable player.
Yeah, and I will say at the start of the New Mexico State game, I put down he started the game off very well, was attacking the rim, and he altered shots on the defensive end where they had a bunch of layup opportunities and they missed a bunch of them, and he was really our only interior defender there. So I mean, they might have just missed, but he did something to alter their shots, which was helpful because New Mexico, spoiler alert, New Mexico State just kept attacking the rim against us and kept driving and basically doing exactly what we wanted to see from Duquesne. Um, and that still hasn't necessarily happened, but uh, the shot selection definitely wasn't great to start this game either, which I know I've been harping on, but man, that just seems like such a big part of our success this year has been just either playing within the offense and getting good shots or rushing to just take shots, and it's not going well.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with just Day specifically. He's the
Oh,
driver of the offense, whether he's making shots or creating stuff off the dribble.
and I
When he starts missing, he kind of starts he'll chuck sometimes, and then the ball's not moving, so that affects everybody.
and I mean I will say this: I love Trey Clark. First off, I can't. He has to be so annoyed that he went from being Trey Clark to Jimmy Clark because there's a Trey on this team. Like the
I was
announcers,
confused by that because some websites they'll have him as Trey Clark and some list him as Jimmy Clark. What do we call this guy?
I mean, he's been Trey Clark for his freshman year at VCU. He was Trey Clark. I think it's solely
Okay,
because there's a Trey Williams that the broadcasters are calling him Jimmy. But I'm pretty sure he goes by Trey. I'm pretty sure, actually, I'm pretty sure his Instagram handle or whatever is Trey. So
I'm just gonna call him Clark
that's
and
fair.
Trey Williams. Like I pretty much go by last name for most of these
I
guys,
mean,
except
especially
Day Day because I mean Day. That's a great first name. I mean,
yeah,
come on.
and I mean Clark is a great name to be calling somebody this time of year. Shout out to National Lampoon Christmas Vacation for all you
Hate
out
that
there.
movie. It's fine.
I'm
Hot
actually not the
take.
biggest. I'm not the biggest fan of it either, but I didn't want both of
Okay.
us to have the same hot take because I know how beloved that movie is. Uh, I noticed that Tevin passed up some shooting opportunities when people went under the screen on him. I feel like he got hurt early in this game, and like
Yeah.
because I
Only
really didn't.
played 9 minutes.
Yeah, and he didn't assert himself offensively. So I think something was bothering him very early on.
Yeah, I chalk that up as he's injured. I mean, going into this game, unless they hadn't said it on the DePaul broadcast, my question was going to be, was Brewer hurt? So, but now we know.
We do know. Yeah, and I mean, I didn't see when you were watching it live, I didn't see, but I looked at the box score and I saw 0 for 1. I was like, was it a catastrophic injury? Like, was it noticeable? And you're like, I don't
Right.
know. So, um, yeah, that
Clearly
was
not.
well, not catastrophic, but we'll hopefully get more information in the post-game
More
presser.
so the noticeable part, but yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and another note that I already harped on, I wish we attacked the basket more like New Mexico State did against us. Man, that opens up so much offense, draws so many fouls. Interestingly, Day Day got a lot of free throw opportunities in this game. I mean,
I
he
was going to
shot,
say that was the only positive from his game. He was being aggressive, 8 of 9 from the line. He was 2 of 14 from the field, so that really most of his points came from the line,
yeah,
which he
and I mean,
hadn't done in previous games, really.
yeah, and he had gone through a few kind of acrobatic layup attempts that I remembered in that game,
Hmm.
which I mean, New Mexico State also did in that game. And I mean, one in particular make and then instantly got the turnover on the inbound pass in the second half. Um, yeah, that was the nail in the coffin in my opinion. Once they did that, um, let's see. I mean, a lot of New Mexico State looked pretty impressive. I don't think any player looked particularly special. To where I was like, man, there's just nothing you can do against that guy.
I
But
would say Issa Muhammad looked. I mean, he played 19 minutes in this game. He was a perfect 7 of 7 from the field and led the team with 17 points, 3 or 4 from the free throw line. So that dude played like perfect basketball when he was out there.
yeah, I guess it's because he wasn't out there as much as I would have thought he would
Right,
be.
yeah, it was sneaky. When I saw the box score, I'm like, oh, this guy just slowly killed us.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess he did. It felt like the whole team really did that. When I was watching that from the end of the first half, like it's the same story in all these losses. Like end of the first half, start of the second half, they just ate away at us and grew that lead out. Um, and normally at the start of the second half, the Dukes are kind of like clicking to get back into it. And that didn't really happen in the New Mexico State game, at least from how I felt watching it.
No. And a big part of this was, I mean, at the end of the day, they just didn't make shots. I mean, they shot 16% from three, 4 of 25, 32% from the field. And especially like almost half of our shot attempts are from three. So when like we kind of said this a few episodes ago, you live by the three and you die by the three. Like we definitely died by the three in this game.
Yeah. Um, One note that I put here is kind of negative, like negative juju vibes. So I don't think I want to say it. But Trey looked good in the first part of this game. Um,
I agree. Yeah.
and the bad juju that I just have to say at this point. Uh, Increasingly getting a little worried that he might transfer after this year because of how great he looks. Like Dan Burt didn't realize how good of a shooter he was when he got him to transfer to Duquesne. I feel like nobody knew that he was that good of a shooter. And now that he's displaying that on top of the defense that everybody did know about, increasingly worried that he's just going to like upgrade for his last year uh, of college eligibility. Um, but we'll see. We'll see how this team goes, and if we are successful, that's a better chance of keeping him. And he obviously has experience in the A10, playing at VCU uh, before going down to the JUCO level and coming back up. Dixon and Rotroff did get some minutes together. It wasn't long in the first half, but they did get some minutes. And Dixon took a three.
He
Um,
did. And it looked online, I'm not
I
gonna
said
lie.
I put the form looked good. He didn't make it, but the form looked good. Um, And Dan Burt mentioned in the post game, which I talked to you a little bit before we started recording. There's not really a four that he's comfortable with outside of Trey. He wants Hronsky to step up, but Hronsky's more of a three. He doesn't want to hurt Dixon's development is the reason why he doesn't want Dixon at the four. He also doesn't feel like Dixon knows necessarily the position as well because he's been focusing on the five this whole time. I don't know if that's offensive plays, defensive adjustment. I don't know what part of the game that he's like worried about him, but he also doesn't want Dixon to lose his development at center because of how much potential he's shown there. So that's Dan Burt's explanation for not wanting to play him at the four, but he's also realizing that he doesn't have much of a choice. He's going to have to throw two guys that are probably more comfortable at the center out there together because Trey's been playing way too many minutes. And he finally admitted that in the post game, which I mean, we've been harping on that.
So he said Trey has been okay. That was something I was going to say after you were done. Trey played 35 minutes in this New Mexico State game, second most on the team next to Day Day. He had an okay game in this game, to be fair. 4-7 from the field, 8 points, 4 rebounds. But when he's out there, I'm like trying to find the elite skill that he has.
He's not
that keeps him on the floor. And Rotroff, he has rebounding. Dixon, defense. Reese can do a little bit of everything. He's the best overall big out of those three, out of those four for sure. Williams, I'm just like, and then in this DePaul game, he shot 3 shots, and we're waiting for the final minutes to come out, but I don't know, man. He's playing a lot of minutes on there, and I don't know what he's giving this team other than a few hook shots every once in a while.
I think it is more just Dan Burt mentioned because
it's got to be that like veteran presence that he's been here and stuff like, well, which matters. That definitely matters.
The question that brought it up was asking if Trey was going to see any minutes at the center position and going like a small ball lineup where you can have Hronsky at the 4 and kind of just have speed.
No, I would hate that lineup.
Right, I know you would. He also nixed that immediately and said no. Trey's definitely at the 4 this year. He's not going to get any 5. We have too many big guys at the 5 that are better suited for that position. So he nixed that. Don't worry about Trey playing the 5. But he also mentioned he doesn't have somebody that he's comfortable with playing at the 4 outside of Trey right now. RJ Gunn was supposed to be the starter at the 4 because he is the spread the floor option, and he doesn't really have that. But Trey.
But neither is Williams. That's kind of my thing. He's not spreading the floor either.
I think it's more Trey was already prepping to play the 4 more as a backup role, I think. And because he knows the plays at that position, knows the defensive assignments, and that was the plan, that's why Dan Burt's playing him there. And he wants to keep he doesn't want to give up the long-term goals of these young guys for the short-term goals until we get.
I think long term Dixon can play the 4.
I agree. He could do both.
It might be what he's better at, especially defensively, because there was a point in this DePaul game where after I think a McGriff mid-ranger made it, and then DePaul is sprinting down the floor. The guard is, I think Gibson it was, and Dixon is right on his ass, like basically picking him up full court. Contests his mid-range shot and ended up with, I think, either McGriff or Clark fouled him on the mid-range shot, but Dixon was right there in his face. He showed he could keep up with a guard full court, and then he's obviously very good shot. He's the best shot blocker on the team as well. So I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. I think he can play the 4.
I think in an ideal lineup where we keep everybody that we want, we develop Bari as our 5 and Dixon as our 4. But I think he's going to be focusing on them as a center right now and then working in the offseason to develop the 4 skills. That's what it seems like based off of what he's saying. Obviously,
my one thing, the only thing I'll say is this, and I'm still waiting for the DePaul minutes to come out. Williams should not be playing 35 minutes a game. Like, he's not good. He's not that good to be taking up when we have very suitable, maybe even better players behind him.
Agreed with him. I don't think anybody on this team should be playing that many minutes.
No. So he should. I mean, even if you go down to 25, you give 5 to Dixon, 5 to Rotroff, or now Bari came into this DePaul game. Like, there's definitely minutes to be spread around, and I
Reed,
kind of like the minutes spread in this game compared to the New Mexico game.
yeah, and Reese. I mean, I don't know how comfortable Reese is at the 4, but he's shot a 3. He has some sort of comfortability when it comes to the outside. He could play the 4.
He's got a
Uh,
little. He's made multiple like 15 to 17-foot mid rangers.
yeah,
I wouldn't say that's his game, but he can do it.
right. So, and I mean, it's his only year here. He's a grad transfer, so we'll see. We'll see how it develops. If RJ Gunn does come back soon, that would definitely be the most ideal answer because he is actually set up to be a 4, can shoot the ball, although we haven't really seen him play over the 2 years he's been on the team because of injuries. But yeah, that would be the ideal answer. We'll see how he gets on, and we'll go from there. Not that it matters because I mean he wasn't getting too many minutes even when he was on the team and not suspended. But Kevin Easley, I thought, was better positioned to be at the 4 this year. He is a knockdown shooter, like not a not too much to his dribble penetration, lateral movement sort of thing. So I
Mhm.
thought he would be an ideal stretch 4 offensively. Defensively, I don't know if he'd be able to handle that, but um, I mean, it basically seems like he's off the team at this point. So
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Any other? I'm not gonna lie. I did not take too many notes for the second half. It was too depressing. Um,
Of New Mexico.
yeah. Oh, the end of
So
the first
there
end
was
of end of the
oh,
first half. Sorry.
go
Uh,
ahead.
the story involving the New Mexico State player and the shooting that the broadcasters announced during this game is just nuts. That seems like it should be getting a lot more national attention than hearing about it for the first time in kind of just banter to kill time during a game.
Yeah.
Um, but wow, great on the announcers for getting that information and being comfortable enough to relay that because I mean, wow,
Yeah. Weird timing.
yeah. Um, and then things got really sloppy to end the first half. There was like a series of turnovers, and then just bad defense. And I think that was part of the acrobatic layup and then instant turnover on an inbound that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I'm gonna so made a little synopsis of one horrible defensive play in the first half from Duquesne, which I feel like kind of summarizes the overall defensive issues with this team. So it was around like the 13:40 mark. This play happens. New Mexico State has the ball. They do a pick and pop to the left-hand side. On the weak side, there's 3 New Mexico players all outside the arc. So simple pick and pop. Um, it's Clark, Dixon, and Grant all defending the weak side. They're all have at least 1 foot in the paint, but they're all their players are out on, beyond the 3-point mark. So then the ball handler passes it to the pop guy at the top of the key, and he swings it to
One of the
the
guys
next
that
man
are
next to him.
right.
One of it was Clark's man just starts to rotate down to the baseline as that's happening. Clark has no idea that it's happening. Day realizes it. So and he realizes this guy's wide open at the bucket. I have to go get him. Goes to him. Clark is just in kind of in this no man's land with 1 foot in the paint. And so there's still a second guy out on the 3. So the ball rotates again one more time. This guy has a wide open 3 and Clark is in that no man's land. Like, it's the team defense and communication. Like,
That
no
was
one's really getting beat off the dribble. It's like more so communicating on defense, and like schematically is where we're getting beat, I feel like.
it wasn't a true corner 3, but it was close to a corner 3 on that, right?
Right.
Yeah, I remember that exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And you never want to be caught in no man's land. Like, Clark wasn't close enough to the guy at the baseline. He wasn't close enough to the ball. And to be fair, when it went from the pop guy to the next person, Dixon came out and closed out really quickly. So Dixon was doing something, Day was doing something, Clark was doing nothing.
And it was just a lack of awareness and a lack of
Yeah.
communication
And all it
on.
was a simple pick and pop. Like it wasn't
Well, and it was,
nothing crazy happened, and it went very it was actually executed slowly, I would argue, from New Mexico's point of view.
and realistically, all it should take is a quick switch, which Day communicates to Trey, hey,
Yeah.
switch to my guy.
Yeah.
That's all it should take.
Right. So
And
it's just communication, I feel like defensively sometimes is lacking, but
I did
yeah.
reiterate my note earlier: talent check, hustle check, discipline / focus still not there. Yeah. The second half notes: we have 3 or 4 players who can I'd say, reliably shoot the three, and
Easily.
all of those players seem to have taken full advantage of this supposed green light that they have, and have just been launching. In this game in particular,
Day
uh,
0 of 8 in this game
yeah, Trey I
from
don't think
three.
was much better from three either, if I remember.
When you say Trey, you mean Clark?
Yes,
He
every
was
time.
3 of 9, so he was solid.
All right. And then my only other note in the second half was kind of got hard to watch. Never felt like the run was coming. Way too many missed shots. That's where I gave up on my analysis of this one.
Too many missed shots. I have some Dixon notes. Only because he started the second half. So he didn't start this game, but he started the second half, and they were doing a full court press. Like I said earlier, Dixon stuck with a guard full court, no issues. So I thought that was interesting. And then I felt Dixon was playing well defensively in this game. Like he was in the right spots. He's really good about timing his double teams, I've noticed. This team in general is just pretty good about knowing when to double team, and they don't really get beat off double teams too often. So that's at least a strength defensively. But like I said earlier in the pod, like Dixon just is fouling too much. I feel like that, and he's a young player, so that kind of that makes sense if it's the bill. But
Yeah, and I mean, I will say I think the great the great aspects of our double teams is probably, I give that a lot to coaching, because that's a point where you really have to coach as to the timing of it, how to make sure somebody can't break it. Um, I mean, players do a lot, but I feel like those areas in particular where it's double teams, dealing with screens, like that's a lot of technical coaching to make sure that you don't get beat every time on those aspects of it.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to talk about this one? Because this one, like I said,
I'll just go off on a little bit of the day stats just because this is all prior to the DePaul game, which he had a good game in. Uh, um, so in the from November 18th to November 29th, which is basically the 4 games against Colgate, North Florida, Alabama State, and UCSB, all scoring over 20 points. He's shooting 57%, 62% on twos, 54% from three, and averaging 24, pretty much 25 points a game. And then from Ball State, Marshall, and New Mexico State, out of those 3 games, Day shot 25% from the field, 27% from two, 24% from three, and averaged 13.7 points a game. So that just kind of shows he's had poor shot selection, and just overall just hasn't been playing well, and kind of it showed in Duquesne's overall offensive play as well.
I don't know if you have this. Do you know what his like shots per 36 were in the, like, was, I'm wondering if he had like similar shot attempts, or whether it seemed a little different. I know in the one game where he had foul trouble and played lower minutes, he still got like 7 or 8 shots out. None of them were like good shot selection, I remember. But I don't know how that pans out over, like, if he wasn't in foul trouble, how many he would have taken.
So yeah, I don't have the per 36, but I do have the attempts. Like in the Marshall game, he shot 6 of 19 from the field. So 19 shots is actually the most he's shot this season in one game. Um, between Colgate, North Florida, all of his good game, that 4-game stretch where he scored over 20 a game, the most he shot was 16 shots. So that Marshall game especially kind of showed he was trying to do too much.
Yeah, I'd say probably like if he's somewhere around like 12 to 14 shots in a game, that's probably where we want him in a shot selection,
Yeah.
just like an amount standpoint. Um,
But
yeah,
this team sometimes goes like this doesn't all boil down to Day-Day's um his play, whether Duquesne wins or loses, but there was such a stark contrast between those 4 games I mentioned and these last 3. Now glad that the DePaul kind of hopefully shook that rust off, and he's now going to be back to his averages, but yeah, it was just these are really big differences.
yeah. And as you and the listeners know, I can't take notes when watching a game live for the first time, so I don't have any actual notes for the DePaul game. But we've talked about it at length already, where it was much better shot selection. It may not have been assists, but there was better ball movement. Just seemed like the team was more focused, and I think part of it is because they realize a player's down,
Yeah.
um, that they have to focus more because they're more solidified in their roles. They know how many, they may not know how many minutes exactly they're going to get, but they know they're getting a set number of minutes here that they have to be relied on. So I think that is playing a role in why we've played better without Brewer on the floor. Because Brewer on the floor, when he's healthy, is good. He's contributed every game. So I don't think he's an issue. I think it's just people raising their game whenever somebody else is out.
Yeah, I would say especially in this DePaul game, it was between McGriff and Clark, like offense, because both McGriff started this game, um, showed that he could do a little bit more offensively, and Clark, weirdly these last in the opposite of Day, like these last 3 games, Clark has kind of been playing the best basketball, I would say.
Yeah. And I did note that uh, McGriff only had one, at least this was true when I looked. Yeah, only one turnover tonight with those added minutes, and he was having the point guard responsibility, much more responsible with the ball. Minutes are up. Trey played 31 minutes, so he still played a lot of minutes. Um, Day played 37, which I didn't realize he was out on the floor like the entirety of the game.
Yeah, he only came. He probably didn't come out the second half. I remember he came out late in the first half, so that was probably where those 3 minutes came from.
Trey Clark, 34 minutes. McGriff played 24. Joe Reese, 21. Barry played 10. Dixon only played 5 today. Rotroff, 13. Rozier played 25. So they basically split up the point guard minutes pretty evenly. And then they're still trying to find a rotation with the bigs. But like we mentioned before, you can find some minutes to cut away from Trey and give to somebody else because I don't think, and I mean, Clark, unless he hasn't looked like he's been out of shape at all, even though he's playing all these minutes. So maybe Clark can play 30, 35 minutes a game.
Yeah,
Day, I think. I mean, shooting is it's so important to have your legs when shooting. So I think that might have played a factor in it too, with him being heavy on minutes. So ideally I'd like him to play like 30, like not 35, like
Day
yeah.
30 minutes. No, I think he needs to play more than that.
I I just
That's
don't
basically
want
a full quarter.
I just don't want him to be exhausted and being relied on so much offensively that he falls out down the stretch. I I don't
I think 3 minutes in the first half, 3 minutes in the second half. If he plays like 34 minutes, I feel like that's fair.
okay. Less than 35. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
Maybe now if we go to overtime, obviously throw everything out. We got to
right.
deal with that. But
All bets are off.
right.
Well,
Um,
they're still on. They're literally still on.
they are. Vegas does not cancel bets because it goes into overtime. You do
Unless
not
you,
do that.
yeah, I don't think they do like in regulation. There's not really many bets in basketball for that. I don't feel like.
I heard that's a thing in soccer that if it goes to
Yes,
extra time, then all bets are off. So
yes,
that phrase does actually ring true. Uh,
yes. Just not in basketball,
yeah.
thankfully.
Um, yeah, field goal percentage wise, I mean, 40% basically. It's not bad. You mentioned that 3-point we weren't great. Free throw line we weren't that great either, but I mean, oh well, we're nitpicking at that point.
No, the
Uh,
the real strength in this game was rebounding. 48 rebounds to 32. Um, and didn't give up a lot of offensive rebound. Like
yeah,
this is
they got eight offensive rebounds. We got 30 defensive rebounds. So we actually played well defensively.
yeah, I don't want to spoil our later segment, but basically DePaul scored 55 points in this game, and I wouldn't. Our defense was good, but
It wasn't special. It wasn't
it
like
wasn't special. And I think that might just boil down to if you defensive rebound.
yeah.
That I mean, I could be wrong, but in this game, that kind of showed, especially in the first half. I'm like, yes, we're getting stops and we're getting the ball back.
Yeah, and I mean DePaul is a team that's also known to live and die by the three. They shot the three well today. It was our interior defense that kind of stepped up. And I think that also played a role in the rebounding too. You stepped up protecting the rim and you stepped up in blocking out, making sure you got the rebound and give them second chance opportunities. Um, so yeah, we can get into that segment that you alluded to, which is promised in this episode description. What does Duquesne want to ask Santa for this year? Uh, I'll start off. I'll start off with the Duquesne. No. You know what? We'll start off with the men's, and then we'll transition into the women, so I can give give a spiel as well that they definitely deserve after this past week.
All right, so if I were to wish for anything, it would definitely be defensive rebounding. And, we said earlier, last in the A10, 325th nationally. Um, wait, did we say that in the pod or did I say
Yeah.
that to you?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the
I
pod.
can't remember. We need to stop talking so much before the pod so I know for fact. But anyway, I think I think defensive rebounding would really help our defensive rating. Our defensive rating now is 105 points per 100 per session. That's last in the A10 and 312th in the country. So that's again well below bottom third of the country, and that's down since the last time I looked up these stats. So
I will say it's probably better after today's game.
it's it probably went up after the DePaul game. That's true, and but that's kind of my point is I think if we just rebound better, we might just be kind of an average defensive team when
And
um
we're clearly an above average offensive team.
right, we're second in the A10 in offensive rating, 111 points per 100 possessions. That's 57th nationally, so top third in the country. Yeah, if we just rebound the ball, I think that would solve a lot of issues on the defensive end.
Yeah, I did mention so I did some general ones because I did more specifics on the women's side of things. The ability to block out or box out for defensive rebounds was on there. One of our bigs figuring out the four spot outside of Trey Williams. Um, the the team to look to drive to the lane more often, which I already harped on, and Rozier to develop a 3-point shot. Those are the ones that I asked for Duquesne men's team for my Christmas wish list.
I wanted to go a little bit into that finding the four position because it felt like in this game, in this DePaul game, especially, Dan Burt is kind of it almost feels like a tryout for the guys up front. Like who he wants to start, who he wants to give big minutes to. Obviously, Bari made his debut coming off the bench, played really well, shot 3 of 5 from the field. had 5 rebounds in the game in just 10 minutes. So he had that sick pump fake in the second half for a dunk. And then he did something. This is something I wrote down. So had a sick pump fake, then dunk at the 14-minute mark. Then on the other end of the floor, Williams is guarding the big man down low, and there's someone outside on the weak side open for 3. And so Bari was going to go over there, but then he directed Williams instead. He's like, no, you go guard the 3. I'm guarding the guy inside. And that just small little thing, like I said earlier, communication on the defensive end is so important. And for him to get his first minutes and he's directing traffic defensively, like that was just something small, but it felt it I don't know, really stood out to me.
And I mean, I haven't talked about this on the pod, but you know how much I just have been so excited for Bari to play. He's been like built up in my head as this mythical
Yeah.
big man who's just he's gonna be Embiid for Duquesne. That's what he is.
Yeah.
And you know what? He didn't really play. He didn't play in his debut. That was hyped up by Pittsburgh Sports Now. But when he did finally get on the floor,
Yeah.
man, there was something there.
So yeah, it just kind of felt, Rotroff played 13 minutes, Bari 10, Dixon 5. Obviously Trey Williams had 31 and Reese at 21. So I think Reese is I think I don't know, and it's only been 2 games, but the starting role was his to begin with before he got injured. He's come back, he's looked good. He's the most balanced big, I would say, out of the 5 of those guys. And then it's really just figuring out how many minutes to split up between Bari and Rotroff at the 5. Because Rotroff has been, I mean, he's an elite offensive rebounder in the country, not just in the A10. So, yeah, I think in these next few games before conference play starts feel like it's going to be important in terms of who's going to get minutes at the 4 and the 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't really say much more than that I mean, like you said, Dixon does feel like he'd be a good spot at the 4. And I
Yeah.
mean, I'm confident Rotroff's going to stay. If Bari ends up staying, then those two could be a really, really special duo to be leading our bigs in future years.
I kind of
Um,
like if we just dissect the DePaul, Trey Williams 31 minutes, Reese 21 minutes. I would give some of those minutes to Reese from Williams,
yeah,
and
I'd say
give
that
some of those minutes a little bit more to Bari and Rotroff. Like Dixon, he's very promising, but Rotroff has he's clearly an elite offensive rebounder. If Bari keeps showing what he did tonight, he's going to earn more minutes.
Reese getting about 25 minutes, Williams getting around 20, 25 minutes, Bari getting around 10 to 15 minutes, Rotroff
I
getting
wouldn't really want Trey Williams being over 30 minutes. Like ideally, in my opinion, he should be playing 25 minutes a game, like
right.
a little more than half the game.
Yeah, I said 20, 25 minutes. I gave
No,
him
I
that.
know. I'm just saying, me personally, like
Right.
20. He should never be over 30 minutes. Like he shot 3 shots in 31 minutes. That's just you're playing too much and not giving enough to the offense. And defensively, he only had 4 rebounds. Like you gotta be. These numbers need to show up somewhere, and they're really not.
Who's the NBA player who had the ridiculous stat line with minutes and then like no points, no rebounds, no steals, no assists? Um, I'm forgetting. He was a
Uh,
buck, I think.
oh, I
Um,
know who you're talking about. Um, I'm gonna blank on his name
he's
though.
an
I'm
older
not.
guard.
Was it Solomon Hill?
I don't think so, but it's someone like him. Like it's
Yeah,
not, yeah. But yeah,
yeah.
that's the meme that came to mind with you.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I know it sounds like I'm picking on Williams. I think he does have a place on this team. I just don't think he should be playing as many minutes as he is.
Yeah, and I think he could bring more to it if he does have that energy where it's more of a sprint as opposed to
Yeah, yeah,
needing to play
exactly.
all of those. All right, now I'm going to switch to the women's side of things. Leading it off, before I get to the Christmas wish list, the Duquesne Duke of the Week this week is Coach Dan Burt for becoming the winningest women's basketball coach in the history of our school. He was He won 177 officially against Vermont this past weekend. It was a tight game. They really took the lead with about 20 to 30 seconds left with a dagger of a three by Tess Myers. Great play call. And hey, a win's a win. I was honored to have worked with him in a very limited capacity as a team manager and a practice player for a few of those years. And man, I can't wait to see him just continue to rack up more wins and see how many he can get. 200 is definitely going to be obtainable. I mean, 300, 400, 500, who knows how long he stays. He's not old. I'll put it that way. So
Big
very
congrats to him. Yeah, that's huge.
anytime you can officially confirm GOAT status for as a coaching position for a school, that's pretty special. And now that he's got the most wins and he's got the only NCAA tournament appearance and he was part of the first NCAA postseason experience of the WNIT, I think he was an assistant coach during the first one, but then continued. Like, yeah, you've clinched that a long time ago.
There's not much competition at Duquesne. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is their 50th year of Duquesne women's basketball too. So, like, hey,
That's cool.
getting a milestone during a milestone
Even numbers.
year. Yeah,
We like even numbers. We're
nice round
simplistic
numbers.
humans.
All right, Duquesne women's wish list. Similar to Rozier, Megan McConnell, if she can develop a solid 3-point shot. No, I mean that's really her only weakness in the offensive game. In the Vermont game, they played off of her to allow her to take a three, and she didn't take it because she wasn't shooting well. So like if she builds that up, this team becomes a whole nother level. We have we have good shooters at the 2, the 3. Honestly, the 4 and the 5 can shoot pretty well too if left open at the 3. So if we just have all 5 being capable of shooting the 3, that lineup is just dangerous. Let's see. Amaya Hamilton, who is been playing a lot of the 4 and 5 lately due to injuries, the gift of confidence because her freshman year, she was every game I watched her, she was putting up 15 points a game. And then it seemed like her sophomore and junior year, she kind of faded back into being a role player instead of being an aggressive on the offensive end. Seemed like she wasn't as confident in her jump shot, wasn't driving into the lane as much. This year, because she's a big, she's attacking the post, she's getting to the basket. Her last 3 games, she's averaging 18 points per game. The gift of confidence to keep attacking the basket because she's super athletic. She's had this potential. She's been successful at the collegiate level before by doing the same thing, and she's finally looking like she's back to that self where she's just attacking. The gift of a healthy team. We have decent depth on the women's side of things, not as much depth as the men's team has. But there was a game where we lost 3 of our backup bigs and basically had to play Amaya Hamilton and Precious Johnson, who Precious is usually the starting 4. Amaya is usually playing a 3 or a 4. Those 2 basically had to be our bigs the entirety of the game because we just didn't have any healthy bodies behind them. So if we can, not have that, and we won that game where we did play limited, but if we can have that depth there, again, whole new dynamic. And then my last one, the last 2, Santa awarding them a nice conference championship trophy this year because they haven't quite achieved that yet. We've come in second, we've tied for first, we've come in second and third a few times in conference play. Just having a sole ownership of the conference title at the end of the regular season, and hey, if we win the conference tournament too, wouldn't be complaining. And then the last one is getting a commitment from my high school player to watch, which is Karis Thomas. She's a freshman this year in high school, but she was offered a scholarship when she was in 4th grade from Duquesne. She was on Good Morning America way back when we were in school, Alec, at Duquesne. And
that was forever ago.
Yeah. She was she went on Good Morning America because of her viral dribbling and basketball skills videos. She played on the Harlem Globetrotters when they came to Pittsburgh. And she, in the interview in Good Morning America, she said she loves basketball. She'd love to play at college. They asked her what colleges would she love to play at. She's like, I'd either love to play at UConn or Duquesne. Duquesne University got mentioned the same breath as Duquesne or UConn women's basketball. And that's when I knew we need to keep her. So that is my
I don't know though. I think the opposite. This girl is considering Duquesne over UConn. She might not have all
listen.
the. There might be
She's
some loose screws, if you know what I mean.
Hey, she's a local kid. She's a 5'6" guard playing at Shady Side Academy. She already dropped 30 points in one of her first games as a high school player. Yeah,
No,
very
yeah.
excited.
Having said that, please come to Duquesne. Yeah.
Please come to Duquesne. And I promise we will definitely ask you why you chose Duquesne many times over, like we did Day Day Grant.
Right, right.
But if she does come,
It's a shtick, everyone. It's a shtick.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just that's just the Pittsburghese. That's the Yinzers. That's what they do.
But if she does come to Duquesne, she'll be joining a long line of pretty successful point guards that Duquesne's had on the women's side of things. April Robinson was a 4-year starter. She led us to the first NCAA tournament. Chastity Omagroso was a decorated local kid, scored a ridiculous amount of threes in her time. Libby Bazelak, another local kid, dominated. Now we've got Megan McConnell. I mean, she would just continue that line of great point guards leading this team. So that's
that would be awesome. That's a great wish list.
Yeah. So now if I had to pick one, I don't know why I just did this to myself just now. I had no need to do this, but if
I was
had
not pressing you to pick one of
not 1 second did you even think of asking me that question, but I asked it to myself and now I'm stuck with it. If I had to pick just one, it would probably be the Megan McConnell 3-point shot because that really just makes her the perfect player in my mind, with how complete she would be.
It runs in the McConnell blood.
It does. So
unfortunately,
fortunately, so many great Duquesne players with McConnell's and coaches. So
that's the fortunate part. Yep.
So we'll see. That's really all I have for tonight. Not trying to keep you guys here for an hour and a half pod again.
Hey, I don't know. We could be the mixtape 2.0. You never know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just then we'd go 3 hours. We'd be doubling our content.
All right, let's go through our actual Christmas list in real life because I know everyone's dying to hear that.
Yeah.
So I want no.
I've got a leaf blower and a smart thermostat. All right.
God, you sound like a real adult.
Being a homeowner turns you into a stereotypical dad, even more so than being a dad.
Couldn't be me.
All right. But that ends it for us this week. Next week we'll talk about everything that happens between now and then.
Looks like we have Indiana State on the slate on December 17th, so this Saturday, and then we got Winthrop on 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. Guess it's a Christmas break.
Yeah. And then
I will not be watching that live. I have to work. I have to make money.
Yeah. There is a New Year's Eve game, but we don't have to worry about that till till the following week's episode. And that's a game I might actually go to. A 1 p.m.
Is there?
Yeah, it's a 1 p.m. game on New Year's Eve. So I might go to that.
New Year's Eve. I thought you said Christmas Eve. I was like,
oh, no.
I'm not seeing that on the slate.
No.
Okay.
But yeah, so
the conference play will start after next week. So we have those 2 games I mentioned, and then we start at Dayton.
Yeah, which
should be a thrashing.
Yeah,
but maybe not.
Hey,
let's cover
conference expectations. This year have been a roller coaster. because going into the season, the A10 was hoping for 3 or 4 teams to make the NCAA tournament. It's now looking like 1, maybe 2, with how the entire conference is done in the non-conference play. The teams that were expected to be really good had quite a few losses that weren't expected to.
Who
Teams
was
like
expected to be good, if you
St.
don't mind me
Louis,
asking?
St. Louis and Dayton were the top 2.
Okay.
Richmond, VCU, and Davidson were the next 3. And
I mean,
they
I mean, if they pick 1 or 2 and we're towards the top, I don't know.
Hey man,
I mean, Dayton's 6-5 right now. St. Louis 7-4, so they're okay. But it looks like the A10's up for grabs. That's for sure.
yeah, and that was another disappointing aspect of us looking bad the 2 games prior to tonight.
Yeah.
Because I was really thinking like we could make a big move in this conference this year. And after those 2 games, I was like, man, I got way too far ahead of myself on these thoughts.
This DePaul game makes me feel a little bit better. We were 3-point favorites, but somehow I think ESPN had DePaul as like 54% chance of winning. So I don't know how that works.
Well, I mean, if you're a favorite at home, I feel like being at home gives you a few points. So, but then again, you'd think that would factor into the
Right.
yeah.
So I don't know where the algorithms get messed up there, but I mean, on paper, basically, it seemed like a slightly competitive A10 matchup.
Yeah, and this past week that we dealt with, I felt like was the harder stretch of like this upcoming week. I'm not as worried about these 2 games. Obviously, the players still need to because man, we can't take a day off at this point. But yeah, the past 3 games definitely felt like the ones that we were going to struggle with. Really, Marshall was the biggest one in my mind.
Yeah.
And that kicked our butts.
Yep. That's okay. We lost to a good team. That's fair. It was the New Mexico one that I was more frustrated with. And then like we said at the beginning, if we lost to DePaul, this would just be a super depressing podcast.
Yeah. We might have needed to find a new sport to follow as a shtick.
That's right. I was going to open up with Embiid putting 53 on the Charlotte Hornets. That's what I would have opened up with.
Yeah, the Charlotte Hornets. I think they've got 6 wins on the year out of 30. I think they're right there.
Hey man, you're in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes, so you have that to look forward to.
That's
maybe.
true. And the Pirates just got the number 1 overall draft pick, so just keep the good times rolling, get the Hornets the number 1 pick, and we'll be set. Which, I mean, I can't even imagine the Hornets actually getting a number 1 overall pick in a year that the number 1 overall pick is good.
No, they're destined for the 8 or the 9 because that's
what
what they
no.
always
I was thinking the number 2 pick, like the Anthony Davis sweepstakes, and we get Michael Kidd-Gilchrist.
You're not scarred. You don't sound scarred at all.
Just a slight drop off in skill from Anthony Davis to Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. Just ever so slight. It's fine.
You're fine. Yeah, you're totally fine.
Totally.
You sound fine.
Yeah. And Duquesne doesn't add any scarring to that either. I mean, they've had great years. Never.
This year will change.
Hopefully. All right, but for now, we'll say goodbye. Talk to you again next week, folks.
See ya.
Back and now it's time to rise up. Rise up.